Yesterday, I told you that I'm going to share my entire money transformation with you over the next 7 weeks, and then we're going to start again because we're going to start wherever I am at that point. And I certainly hope that if you have any challenges, any problems keeping your money in your wallet, in your account, then I strongly encourage you to join me so we can celebrate each other and really just create a beautiful transformation for both of ourselves. All right, so here's a question that I asked myself today. So, if I, as somebody who lives in this beautiful, free country with all the opportunities that I have, if I am not where I want to be financially, what does that mean? Where am I? Right. So the immediate answer that came up for me was, well, then I'm poor, right? And the follow up question was, well, define poor, right? Because I know that I have it better than 99% of the world. So let's just define poor. And to me, the definition of poor is, in my life, is starting every month from scratch. Okay, well, that could mean that I am poor, right? But it could also mean that I'm something like don't save for the following month, don't have a financial discipline, that I am spending beyond my means without putting money away. And is that the truth? Well, not really. I do put money in the savings account. I am rather careful with my spending. So then what does it mean? Well, it really means that I have this poor state of mind, right? And when I think about my poor state of mind, I get curious, where does it come from, right? Where did I acquire that? And in yesterday's video, I shared with you little bits and pieces of my life. So today, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. All right. But before I start digging a little bit deeper, I'm curious for what that means for you. If you are not financially wealthy, what are you then? Right? And define that. If you also identify as poor, let's just define it. What makes you that? Maybe you don't think of yourself as poor. Maybe you think of yourself as financially undisciplined or something, whatever that is for you. But let's just define that, and then we can see where that comes from. So here's my story. I was born in Bosnia to, as I had mentioned, to a couple of people who really were not mature yet to have children. And my father was an alcoholic. He was very young when he married, by today's standards, maybe not back then. But he was, I believe, 24 when he married my mother. He already had a child with someone else, and from previous relationship whom he didn't seem to financially take care of. And then he married my mother, and they had a terrible marriage. He drank a lot. He cheated on my mom a lot. She believed that if she just kind of crumbled up and cried and begged for him to change, that he would miraculously change and take care of her. And then she ended up having my brother with him. And then 5 years later, they ended up having me. And the entire time, they were very poor. She didn't work. He was an electrician. And sometime later in their life, in their marriage together, he was kind of promoted to a foreman, but still not very much money. It is customary in Bosnia that the woman brings dowry, but the man's family builds him a house. So my grandparents had a lot of land, they had a lot of livestock, they were well off when you look from the outside in, because they were serialpreneurs, they were hustling, they made sure that all 5 of their kids had something to show for themselves. So my grandparents financially built them the house. My parents and a bunch of other people physically built the house. So they had a very good looking 3-story house, but not much inside of the house. They didn't even have windows. They were very, very poor. And when my dad passed away, my mom inherited all of his debts that he acquired. So she was stuck with paying those debts. She didn't have a job. Then she ended up getting a job as a janitorial job at a local middle school. It was really there. It was elementary school and middle school together. And she worked there for a while. But my entire early childhood, we were very poor. I don't remember them fighting. I don't really remember any of the gore that my brother remembers and that my mom has spent most of my childhood talking about. But they had a very rough time, and then he passed away at the age of 32. And my entire childhood, my mother talked about how the people next door to us, which is my father's brother and his wife, they were very well off, and how they were thieves, and how all the people who have money, they're thieves, they're bad people, they're taking advantage of poor people like us. And then I remember her crying all the time that she couldn't pay her bills. My brother ended up being a rebellious teenager, and he would take money from her, and she would kind of throw herself on the floor and roll around and just be in this agony and despair. And I remember being completely helpless and really developing a very negative view on money. I remember being a young child thinking that, wishing that money didn't exist. If it didn't exist, my mom wouldn't be feeling like this, and we would be a happier family. So fast forward to today, as I said yesterday was my 46th birthday. It just makes sense that I have spent my entire life repeating that belief that I developed at a very young age. So today's video, because I'm going to spend the next year talking about this, I'm in no rush, but today's video is really just to kind of think about your story, your money story, and just kind of observe it, and write it down, speak it out like I'm speaking it out, write it in my comments of this video. Just do something to dig up the story that you have about money, and finish it with no wonder I feel like this, without judging the people who created that story for you before you could really think for yourself, without judging yourself for holding on to that story. Just simply no wonder. All right, I will see you tomorrow as we dig even deeper.